Welcome back to the War Room, powered by Draft HQ and Prep Baseball. The draft is over. Seif, we have the great Kendall Rogers of D1 Baseball on the line here. Any of you high school families who are watching this show about the draft, this is the legend. This is the guy that lifts up college baseball along with Aaron Fitt and the rest of the squad. It's what I love to tune in. If you want to know who Shooter Hunt follows on Twitter, Kendall Rogers right here. So Kendall, welcome to the show.
I'm glad to be here. You know what? David Seifert is so much to handle that both of us have him.
It's so true.
It takes two to tango, or as Adam Sandler would say, or something like that.
I do know you mentioned Aaron Fitt. He hits leadoff for D1, but Kendall is the cleanup hitter. Like there's no doubt hitting the 4 spot.
Joe's kind of a good little two-hole guy, though. I have to admit that.
Runes and I are just kind of role players, so yeah, we're good.
Okay, we'll put away the yearbook.
Y'all are awesome.
Baseball for a second.
None of us are shooter.
So we can talk a little draft. Let's dive right into the draft because this was one of the more fascinating drafts in recent memory just because at the top, things started going in a hurry. Eli Willits goes 1-1 to the Nationals. Unlikely a haircut there at pick number 2. Tyler Bremner, one of the coolest videos that I saw was him getting the call, being next to his dad. It was really awesome to see. And then Cade Anderson, who goes for underslot, kind of telling about what might have been popping up in the medicals or whatnot. He's still going to pitch in the big leagues. He's Max Fried 2.0. Yeah. But Kendall, why don't you lead us off? What were your thoughts initially with the draft from the college side?
Yeah, it's really interesting. I kind of go back to a story that Aaron Fitt told me, and I'll touch on high school just real quick, just because it's such a cool story. But Aaron saw Oklahoma. I think this was, it was Eli Willits' sophomore year at OU, and he had happened to be practicing with OU and during the fall workouts, just on the field, hanging out with his dad. And Aaron's over there going through the roster, who the hell is this guy? He's the best player on the field by a mile. And, he goes and asks Reggie and goes and asks Skip. It's oh, that's his sophomore son. And so it's kind of cool to go from that to him being the number 1 overall pick. But I think for me, I think Bremner certainly being chosen where he was chosen was interesting. It's kind of one of those things, some people have kind of bagged on that pick a little bit. But, if you go back and look at his strikeout numbers this year, his strike to walk ratio is actually pretty good. Last year his numbers were or 2 years ago his numbers were really good. So there's a ton of upside there. But I think for me, from a college perspective, what stood out were just some of those guys that dropped. Jace LaVallette comes to mind for me, just because he was a guy that Seif had, and all of us agreed, by the way, that he was the number 1 overall college prospect going into the spring. And I really thought that what he did the final month and a half of the season, where his strikeout rate was really high. It looked like he was talking to himself a lot in the box. And I think a lot of scouts are sitting there going, "Oh man, this is not very good." And you talk about a guy with a lot of swing and miss. But I tell you what, man, the Guardians getting him 27th overall, I was a little surprised the Astros didn't snag him there over the high schooler. But for the Guardians to get him 27th overall, if he can kind of figure out the mental aspect of the game and cut down on his swing and miss, he's as good as any college prospect in this class.
For sure, and piggybacking on you with Bremner at 2, you think about, people have been asking me the same thing. Was that a super shock? Seif coming into the year, that was a guy potentially maybe 1-1, but if not a top 3 pick after his CNT performance with which you got to see. But then you look at the rest of the draft, right? We always talk about it's got to be taken as a whole. You get Chase Shores, triple digits fastball, going to kind of fly up there. They add 3 high school arms. So 3 real high school arms to stretch out the draft. So instead of going out and getting just Cade Anderson, you get Bremner, which is a solid fallback for a guy who you thought was the best right-hander in the class. Johnny Slawinski, a lefty, sorry at Kendall, Texas A&M fans. He will not be making it to camp. Well, I shouldn't say that too soon.
I'm unbiased, man.
That Aggies piggy bank is definitely quite large.
To counter that, I will give you another thought on a Texas-related player, but go ahead.
I was going to say Slawinski, and then you add C.J. Gray, who was an electric righty from North Carolina, committed to NC State, and Luke LaCourse, who blew up at our Super 60, 3,400-plus RPM. It feels like the yearly Michigan State recruit that ends up going. They also added kind of some insurance that I think they will attack these guys. Lefties, Talon Haley, another guy from the Super 60, committed to Vanderbilt, and Xavier Mitchell, who's a Texas recruit. Those are 2 big lefties that the Angels have shown the ability to go out in rounds 11 through 20 and actually go out and spend a considerable amount of money. So I anticipate those guys are going to be potentially gone, but that's kind of where you situate why Bremner went. What do you guys, anything else you guys have on the Angels from that standpoint?
Go ahead, Seif.
No, I think with Bremner, in Bremner's case, I mean, he was so good at this time last year for the USA CNT during the trials. It was up to 98, pitching at 94, 96. It was his plus changeup, which he still has. But then what he also had, and nobody really talked about because it wasn't there at all this spring, was he had a plus slider. I called it a sweeper just with his arm angle, how much horizontal movement was getting. But in the preseason, he was Prep Baseball's number 3 overall prospect on the draft board on March 15th. For D1 baseball, our preseason is mid-February. He was number 2 on our board behind Lavallee. So it wasn't like Bremner didn't have talent. He just started off the first 6-7 weeks of the spring season not probably showing the expectation of how good he was last summer. And then he settled in and pitched better. And I still probably wouldn't have taken him 2 overall, but we'll see when the numbers come out what kind of discount, what kind of a dealer was, because it enabled the Angels to do some other things. But I don't have a problem with a pick just based on the talent he was if they got a little discount. So that's my Bremner for you.
Kendall, what other background did you have?
Yeah, I think that a couple of other things that really stood out to me. I loved, Ike Irish, going to the Orioles. I mean, I think for my money, like he was the guy that when I watched SEC teams, like he was the most feared hitter in that league and the best league in college baseball. And so I think Ike Irish, I think the Orioles getting him. 2 other guys that's really stood out to me. I mean, I absolutely love Max Blue going to the Rockies. Like, I feel like that's a really good fit for him. Yes. He was a guy that I think if his thumb is healthy, he doesn't have that torn ligament, I think he goes a little bit higher. There's a lot of concern from the scouts about his ability to hit consistently and with consistent, power at the next level. That was kind of the knock on him. And I was talking to a couple of cross-checkers after the draft because I was a little surprised he went that low. The other guy for me, guys, is Anthony Ianson. They did their homework getting him in that 3rd round. I really thought he would get that Omaha bump. You always kind of see that guy that gets the Omaha bump. I feel like, Bodine to an extent got a little bit of an Omaha bump. But, Ianson, I love everything about him. Like, the fastball I get, it's not 98 like a Chase Shores, but it's 93, 95. It's a plus splitter. And here's my thing, and Seif knows this, and Shooter, you know this. I'm all about the bar fight meter. When I'm thinking of a guy that I believe in, they could progress to each level of professional ranks, and oh, by the way, be a successful big league guy. I want a guy who thinks he's like Roger Clemens today, and that is Anthony Ianson. You combine that with his stuff. I was a little surprised he dropped to the 3rd round, and maybe there's a reason for that.
Hey, Seif, I'm going to tee you up because I know how much we love the Red Sox draft in general and what they did. Listen to last year's Yankees draft. So this is what last year's Yankees draft looked like at the top. They took Ben Hess, righty out of Alabama, Bryce Cunningham, Vanderbilt right-hander, Thatcher Hurd, LSU right-hander, Gage Zeal right-hander out of Miami, Grayson Carter from Vanderbilt right-hander, Griff Herring, who is tearing it up right now, LSU lefty, and then Wyatt Parliament, another big hard-throwing righty for Virginia Tech. Compare that to the Red Sox of this year, who took Oklahoma right-hander Kyson Witherspoon, Tennessee right-hander Marcus Phillips. They took Henry Godbout in the 3rd, but Anthony Ianson, LSU, Tristan Fouch from Arkansas, Leighton Finley from Georgia, Miles Patton from A&M. Did the Red Sox just steal the Yankees model this year from 24? Did they just copy-paste?
Yeah, I think they stole it, but they polished it up a little bit too. I mean, obviously you can't predict Thatcher Hurd's Tommy John surgery, right? But I know us personally at D1, we were the highest on Bryce Cunningham. I mean, we had him propped up there all year long. We actually called him like a late 1st rounder. Ben Hess liked him as well. But with that said, we probably didn't like him as much as the industry. But man, we are all about Kyson Witherspoon. I personally was all about Marcus Phillips, Anthony Ianson. Obviously, Kendall really liked him. I liked him as well. I know the fastball had a poor shape. Kind of funny story during the draft. Several friends throughout Major League Baseball, and one was in the draft room for a particular club. And they kept drafting pitcher after pitcher after pitcher after pitcher. And a couple of, I'd heard of all of them, but hadn't seen all of them. I'm like, stop drafting fastball shapes and just draft major league pitchers. So it's just funny how the game has changed a little bit today, but it has. And then back to the Red Sox draft. I mean, you got Kristen Fouch. I had him as a preseason second, third rounder heading in. And he was just outstanding last year. Throwing 100, had a splitter, had a 80, not an 80 grade, but like a 60, 70 grade cutter. That was last year. Really didn't see all of that this year, but he's still a dude. They got him later. Leighton Finley, another pick, and then Miles Patton. I know he's an Aggie, so Kendall's going to love him. But, I mean, it's a upper 80s, low 90s arm that can really, really pitch. Those guys tend to go a long ways in pro ball because they're left to strike guys out and just throw strikes, period. So, yeah, that Red Sox draft is very exciting.
Can I give you two more Red Sox draft picks that I love? By the way, the Red Sox was my favorite draft. I'll give you Jacob Myers at LSU is a really interesting professional prospect. Like when he takes the mound, like you're paying attention. Like it's a big frame. It's he's up to 101, I think, in Omaha in his short stint there. If they can figure out the command, and that's a big ask. I mean, you're talking about a guy who I think somebody said, I think I saw the other day, it's like a 38 to 40% walk rate. I mean, it's something outrageously bad. But, I mean, it is, elite velocity. The other guy I would say keep an eye on, and again, I'm not saying he's just this good just yet. I think he's a little bit more raw than Victor Scott. But keep an eye on West Virginia's Skylar King. I saw him at U of H earlier this year when West Virginia was down there. And I really like this guy. He covers a lot of ground in the outfield. He can steal bases, a lot like Victor Scott. Doesn't have big-time power, but, man, he can really make some things happen, and he plays the game at 150 miles an hour. And, to get him in the 15th round, just keep an eye on that. There's a little bit of a Victor Scott look with Skylar King. And I believe he's an MLB draft league guy, if I'm not mistaken.
Saif?
Yeah, Jacob Myers, certainly. I'm with you, Kendall. He was a draft league guy, and he was kind of the ringer. The draft league played the Cape Cod League All-Stars back 2 Mondays ago at Citi Field in New York. And Myers, he hadn't even pitched an inning in the draft league yet, but they brought him as one of their guys to the All-Star game. And then he had, I think, 3 or 4 additional appearances after that. But, yeah, I mean, he was up to 97, 98 that day. He's got kind of all of his off-speed needs obviously polish with control and just action. But, he's throwing the split change. He had a little cutter. Big arm, and they got him in the 9th round. I mean, a 9th rounder,
crazy.
Throwing 100. That's pretty darn good. I know velocity's out there everywhere, but this is a pretty darn good pickup for the 9th round. And Skylar King, I was all over him as well. I think we had him as a 4th, 5th rounder on the D1 final top 150. So
he's a neat player.
Yeah, I agree with everything Kendall said about him. There's not a lot of pop. There's some length to the swing. He pulls off a little bit, but when he puts bat to the ball, I think he had less than a 10% strikeout rate. And again, the exit velocity is not there yet, but everything else Kendall, added, that's a steal in the 15th round.
Yeah, Saif, I was gonna follow up real quick with something on Cade Fisher, the Auburn lefty. He was a guy that, if you remember back to the transfer portal last summer, I mean, he got one of the bigger NIL deals in the country to go from Florida to Auburn. Obviously things didn't work out for him overall, but I mean, an 18th rounder with him. Like, have you seen somebody like him before? I mean, just at the next level.
Yeah, I mean, what I saw him. Maybe I was with you, or maybe I was with Fiddy at Globe Life. It was either weekend 1 or opening weekend or weekend 3. I forget which weekend Auburn was there, but saw him early. He was 92, 93 in the first inning, and all of a sudden, second inning hit, he was 88, 90. There's not a consistent breaking ball there. There's not really, it's more control than command. And the thing again, he's left-handed. Lefties need to make you say no, or righties need to make you say right. Yes, righties need to make you say yes. Lefties need to make you say no. And he actually made me say no that day. He stopped competing at some point. And I know he rebounded from there and came back, and maybe he battled some injury throughout the season. But I didn't have the best look at Cade Fisher. Again, it was either weekend 1 or 3 there. But to get a lefty with his reputation in the 18th round, that is a steal, whether you love the guy or you don't. 18th round for a lefty like that, that's a really good pick.
Is there a chance he goes back to school?
I think you can ask Kendall on that one. I would. Yeah. I would take the money if I'm Cade Fisher. I'm taking the 150 G's or whatever the offer is. I think it's up to 195 now, right? That doesn't count towards
friendly.
Yeah, he's getting more than that at Auburn. So You never know.
Hey, let me shift. Let me circle back to the Jace Lavalette pick because of the Guardians and what they did. And Kendall, you were talking about guys you want in a bar fight with you. I mean, Jace Lavalette at 6'6", 230. Dean Curley 6'3", 220. Aaron Walton 6'3", 220. Nolan Schubart 6'5", 223. Riley Nelson 6'3", 222. Nelson Keljo 6'4", 230. Anthony Martinez 6'3", 230. Do the Guardians have a type?
Yeah, it does seem like that, doesn't it? I mean, here's the thing I love about their draft too. That was probably about, at least in the top, 10 or 11 rounds, or actually in the top 15 rounds. I thought they had the second best draft. I mean, kind of going from the bottom up. I mean, Evan Crest is a really big arm. I know he's had some injury issues, but that's a premium arm. Anthony Silva, remember when we were talking about that guy as a first rounder? Obviously, there are valid reasons for him getting kind of nicked in the draft. But I mean, to get him as a 14th rounder, he's one of those guys that, if it all clicks, I mean, he's a top 2-round talent. So I thought getting him there was impressive. And then you kind of going back to what you were talking about, Shooter, Lavalette, I know Seif loves some Dean Curley. And then Aaron Walton, the thing that's really cool about Walton is he's got big-time power. And with his 6'3", 220-pound frame, he actually can cover a lot of ground. If you go back and look at the Super Regional with North Carolina, his defense, I mean, I think he won them one of the games. His defense was incredible that weekend. So for a guy with that size to run like that is really impressive. And I will say this, I get it. There's a lot of swing and miss here. But I'm kind of buying Nolan Schubert a little bit. I get that the swing and miss is outrageous, but man, he can mash the ball, and it's just all about him cutting down the swings and misses. It's a little bit to me like Jace Lavalette light. Lavalette's a better athlete, but boy, if Schubert clicks, I mean, goodness gracious, that's huge power.
It'll be interesting to see the minor leagues, these guys all in the same lineup with the pitchers that they go up against, because you will be able to get some whiffs against this team, but you'll also be facing some danger. I do like the fact Nelson Keljo in that system, right? Mm-hmm. What the Guardians have been able to do in developing, and then you guys can talk about, they got Ryan Prager in the 9th round. He was, a second rounder last year? I understand it's taking a step back, whatever it is, but he was a second rounder last year, and you got him in the 9th round. Who knows? He gets sent off. He gets to go into pro ball, and now he gets back to real form. Just some good stuff from them.
Yeah.
Seif, let me shift over to you for a second just to talk a little bit about day 2 and some of your favorite picks from day 2. I know you are, I would say, I don't want to call you the king of anything. You are the savant of
the director of credibility.
You are the day 2 savant. Nobody gets in and scouts harder on those day 2 guys, right? It's so easy to get the first rounders. Oh, this guy's good. It just hits you in the face. Seif will get down to the nitty gritty. Who are some of the guys that you liked on day 2?
Well, I appreciate the introduction. I actually, when I was an area scout, I did pride myself on anyone. I don't say anyone can be good in the first couple rounds, but you have so much other input from guys who have been doing it for a long time, longer than me, right? They've been scouting 15, 20, 30 years even. So you're going to get their input, and you're going to get those top 2-3 round guys, right? Just because others are seeing them. But yeah, rounds 4 through 10, and then obviously 11 through the end, that's kind of where you make your hay. But I just want to flash back real quick, just put a word in, not making any predictions, but love Devin Taylor. Have no idea why he dropped so far. Left fielder from Indiana. Asked a couple area guys, and they both said he just has minimum defensive value, which I understand. And I'm not saying Devin Taylor is going to be a perennial all-star, but the all-stars are there for what reason? Do we have all-stars because they're great defenders, or do we have all-stars because they rake? And I just think Devin Taylor is going to rake. So I just wanted to get my minute on Devin Taylor from Indiana. So moving forward, day 2. My favorite picks from day 2 were actually guys I considered should have been drafted later in day 1. So third round types. I was in on Gabe Davis, the 6'9" righty from Oklahoma State. Had seen him last summer at this USA CNT. Saw him. Well, I went to see him at Arkansas this past fall, but he was banged up from, I guess, a hunting incident. He fell on his shoulder, so he didn't play against Arkansas when Okie State traveled there for 3 games last fall. And then he was up and down, injured, riddled season, so that's why he fell. I believe he fell to the 5th round, but then I thought that was a great 5th round pick. And then the White Sox followed that up with Colby Shelton in the 6th. Huge fan of Colby Shelton. Do not understand it, and I don't know everything. I don't know. We don't know medicals. We don't know behind the scenes stuff. We don't know signabilities. We don't know anything that. We just evaluate the talent, what we see on the field, what we know about the kid. But Colby Shelton, just love him. I mean, he hit 25 home runs, but only hit 260 and struck out over 20% of the time as a sophomore. He adjusted. I think he over-adjusted. He too flattened his swing through the zone. But he hit 371 for the Gators in the SEC. He only hit 9 home runs, but his exit velocities were similar from his sophomore to junior year. So, and he could play shortstop. Maybe not every day in the big leagues, but as we talked about in the show before, the same wasn't thought of Trey Sweeney, Yankees first runner, who's still playing shortstop. Paul DeYoung, I go way back with him as an area scout. So there's at least 2 guys in my memory from just the state of Illinois that weren't seen as future big league shortstops. I think Shelton will play there. Again, maybe not every day, but you got a guy with plus power who can play shortstop, who hit 371 with like I think it was a 13% strikeout rate, which is good. So Shelton was a steal in round 6. And probably even beyond him, even more favorite was Nick Dumasnil from Cal Baptist. Center fielder, 5-tool guy. He cut his strikeout rate down. Well, I'm sorry. He cut it from his freshman to his sophomore big time, but then sophomore to junior went back up. But he still hit with power. He can still run. He can still throw. I love his swing. There's just whip and bat speed. Love everything about him. And he went in the 8th round. So those are kind of my big 3. He went. The Tigers nabbed him in the 8th round. But those are really my big 3 guys, rounds 4 to 10. And I could go on and on every favorite pick, but I'll send it back to you, Shooter.
Well, Kendall, we'll talk a little bit more about the White Sox because I know Seifert and we loved what the White Sox did. They went out with a plan. They attacked the plan. They accomplished that plan. Billy Carlson, who is a wizard with the glove, he's going to really hit. He's going to be – it's the perfect org for him to go to. They do a great job with athletes. Billy Carlson, shortstop. Jaden Fauske, LSU recruit. Carlson was at Tennessee. Fauske, I thought, might have been the best pure hitter in the class. I think he's going to skyrocket. Thought he had a chance to get the campus. Landon Hodge, who we were talking about before we got on the show, he was essentially Fauske light. Like if you wanted a discount on what Fauske was, Landon Hodge was that guy. Both can really hit. He had a great year at Crespi High in LA. So those are the high school guys. But then they get Kyle Lodice, Georgia Tech. You talked about Gabe Davis, Oklahoma State, who could have been a first rounder, get him in the 5th. Shelton, you get in the 6th round. So you have these upside high school guys. And then you also get some fun college guys. Matthew Button, another Texas A&M recruit in the 11th. It'll be interesting to see what happens with him. He's another fun high school. But I want you to talk a little bit more because they do also get Rylan Galvan.
Oh, yeah.
So they're just adding Cademan Parker. They're just some really good depth pieces in 11 through 20 for the White Sox. Talk about Galvan.
Yeah, there's no doubt. I mean, Galvan, to me, to get him where they did is pretty incredible. I thought, I'm just kind of going back to the catcher list of guys that were drafted. I mean, I'm taking him over a lot of these guys. I did love to see my man Boston Smith go in the 6th round. Mm-hmm. He was so awesome at the postseason. But Galvan, for me, the thing about him that surprised me that he went as low as he did is he improved his defense dramatically. I mean, I saw him plenty of times 2 years ago, and he needed a lot of work defensively. It wasn't so much the receiving aspect of his game. It was more so his arm. His arm is just very inaccurate to second base. Not only did his receiving and his framing and things like that get even better this season, I thought his arm looked a lot better, a lot more consistent. The other thing I really liked about Rylan as well is the fact that his power greatly increased. He hit 7 more home runs than he did last year. He walked was it 20 more times than he did 2 years ago. So a lot more to me, a lot more plate patience, a lot better at bats. But I will say this: the last month of the season was just kind of so offensively for him, and I kind of wonder if that hurt him. But again, you'll see a theme. Like we talked about, the Guardians have a type. I have a type, and Rylan Galvan is just one of those dudes that when you walk in the OK Corral, like he's going to throw some chairs at people. And I'm just a believer in a guy like that has his talent. I did want to mention one guy real quick, just because we were doing kind of our favorite picks. Jacob Walsh. I don't know how in the world he went in the 15th round. I mean, we're talking about a guy 6'4", 225 from the left side. For the Ducks this past season, 19 homers, 60 RBIs. And here's the thing I like about Walsh. I like to look at trend lines, right? And if you look at Walsh, increased his batting average 80 points from 2 seasons ago. The thing I love about him, though, he decreased his strikeouts by 20 from 2 years ago with more at bats. And so he's showing more power. He's hitting for a better average, a better OPS. And oh, by the way, he's striking out less. What is there not to like with Jacob Walsh?
It seemed to me, Seif, and you could talk about this as a whole, a lot of the clubs were sprinting away from the college guys. They saw all the upside of these high school guys and how talented it was, something we discussed throughout the last year and a half, I'd say. But even for Walsh, like it's almost like it pushed you back 5 rounds. It's like, we'll get to these guys later. Like we gotta sprint in, especially the shortstops higher up. What did you think as a whole for the college class this year? What would say you about them, Seif?
I thought for the most part, I mean, every year you go in and you like who you like, right? And usually like the guys you see, at least I do. I like the guys I see with my own eyes. Stats do tell the story when you're not there. I mean, you do need to consider those guys, but for me, you just see them and you like them, right? And the more you see them, sometimes the more you like them. But Jacob Walsh, and I just want to add on to what Kendall was saying about Walsh is I do not understand how he was taken in the 15th round. I personally had him as a 4th round senior. I see this guy as a potentially Ryan Howard 2.0. Jacob Walsh is 6'4", 225 pounds, left-handed hitter, just like Ryan Howard, strikes out less than Ryan Howard did in college. And, to what Kendall was saying, I saw Walsh at Iowa towards the end of the season, hit balls over the wall. He battled with 2 strikes, went the other way with 2 strikes. He used every field. I know he probably had the series of his life. I think he had 8 or 9 hits in the 3-game series. So I get that. But his stats also back that up. I mean, the guy hit close to 340. He hit 19 home runs. He struck out, I think, only 18% of the time compared to 26% of the time the following year. But he increased his ISO. He increased his batting average. He increased something else. Oh, he increased his walk rate too. So it's like some guys can increase their power, but they're going to strike out more. And some guys will strike out less, but then their power goes out the crapper, right? He did it all. He improved everything, kind of like Cam Smith did last year for Florida State after that freshman year and then his tremendous sophomore year. So my money is in on Jacob Walsh. So
I'll say one thing, Seif, on the accounting side of things, because you can talk about this too, Kendall, but they took Hunter Hines. The Nationals took Hunter Hines in the 10th round versus Walsh going to the 15th. I'll be curious to see how those numbers break down because of the top 10 round situation.
Great comparable. Yes, great comparable.
But like, how about those 2 bats in the lineup?
That's pretty good. Both guys with a decent amount of swing and miss. Both guys can hit absolute tanks. But yeah, there has to be something going on if Jacob Walsh gets drafted 11 rounds after Mason Neville, who, by the way, is a really good power hitter, but also swings and misses a lot more than Jacob Walsh.
Hey, I'm gonna just be a little bit selfish here about what was my favorite day 2 section of the draft. I said the New York Mets. And one of the reasons why, and Seif knows this well, Kendall, is the accounting aspect becomes so important. The Mets had no money to spend. And I think I wrote it up. For a team that no longer has to worry about pinching pennies, they still showed that they can do it when they need. And just on the second day, Peter Kusau, who was a Louisville recruit, loved him at the Super 60, pounded the zone. It's a unique pitch profile. All those pitches for strikes. Seif, his sister, big hooper, like big time college hoop. Peyton Prescott, who they got in the 5th round, who Peyton Prescott probably gets $1 million if he doesn't pitch game 3 against Oregon State. Like if they just instead get beaten in 2 games by the Beavs, he goes off and makes $1 million. Now he's going to get Tommy John or whatever the injury is. They get him in the 5th round. Nathan Hall. Cam Tilley was one that we loved in high school. Draft soft. I go in, I'm like, okay, this kid had to fill a void in the bullpen for Auburn, got run out there. Do they grab him, let him go off and start? They kind of do some stuff with that. Camden Lohman, who's a Missouri kid, is going to be up to triple digits. I just thought they were able to extend what they were doing. Now, I also, in the moment, was thinking Connor Ware might be a really nice piece for them at 15, but it sounds like he's going to head back to LSU. Have you seen anything on that?
I haven't seen anything on that, but that's a really good 15th round pick. And
so it was just like, and if you guys could tell me some more about like what Peyton Prescott was, what Cam Tilley was, because it was bullpen pieces. Can they do some more in the future?
Well, Prescott's a transfer, I believe, from Jacksonville, and I saw him for the first time last fall. Florida State traveled to Alabama for a fall series, and I think he was only up to 96, 97. I say only 96, 97. But I think that's where he was on that day. And then that's kind of what he was throughout the spring. It was a 95 to 98. And then all of a sudden he's tickling 99. And the next thing you know, he's touching 100. It's like, holy cow. But, big, strong physical, sophomore eligible for this year's draft. And he broke down. But I like this for the club. It's a great pick for the club in the 5th round. But I especially like it for Peyton Prescott himself, right? Because if he goes back to school, he's not pitching in 26, right? So it's a dead year. So now he's an old junior and has less value, but he signs. He gets rehabbed by the Mets. He's around the game. He's at their spring training site almost every day, getting better, doing the rehab from Tommy John, and boom, he can hit the ground running in the spring and have just a sense of normalcy. And maybe he pitches a little bit towards the middle of the minor league season when the college season would be over. So I love the pick for the Mets. I love the pick for Peyton Prescott himself.
And any other particular picks or even teams and their approaches for you, Kendall or Seif, that you guys were all about before I hop over to some recruiting class stuff?
Well, we talked about the White Sox earlier. You and I love I especially love the White Sox, what they did on day one. And I liked it even more. Although the Red Sox were my favorite day 2, the White Sox are right there knocking on the door. I just really like what they did. And again, you like the guys you see more than the ones you don't see. And I just saw a lot of their players, and we had already talked about them. But the one guy we missed was Anthony DePino, University of Rhode Island third baseman. It's a very rotational swing, so there's pull off there. But this is a big, strong strap, and he's only 5'11", but he's 220. Hits bombs, hits it really super hard, doesn't have a lot of bat speed. It's strength over bat speed, and probably has to go to first base. But, man, just talk about more power. I just thought that was a really good pickup in the 7th round, especially for a senior as well.
Kendall, what about you?
Yeah, I'll give you one really interesting pick just because I'm fascinated to see, what he does the next level, and that's Jake Knapp. What it kind of reminds me of a little bit when you look at the strikeout numbers versus innings pitch, it kind of reminds me – and they're totally different pitchers, so I'm not saying the mechanics and things like that are the same. But what it reminds me of is a little bit of Robert Woodard. If you think about him when he was at North Carolina, just totally dominated the ACC. I want to say he was the ACC Pitcher of the Year his final year there. Obviously the pro career didn't amount to a lot, but ultra accomplished college pitcher. You just kind of wonder a guy like Jake Knapp who, just totally dominated, limited teams to a 196 average in the ACC. That's pretty incredible. The year that he had, does his stuff, and can his stuff, I guess is the better question, translate to the next level? If it can, that's a really good pick for the Cubs in the 8th round.
And it goes that we kind of stayed away from the collegiate all-star team that the Orioles kind of put together coming out of day 1, and they had a lot of picks. It's so easy. You had a lot of money. You had a lot of really good players. We'll see how they kind of pan out. I can't tend to go, or what will be these guys doing with not a lot of money? Were they able to go out and scout and actually not punt the draft and actually go out and do some big things? Any more before I shift over and get really biased about the high school kids going off to college?
I think I'm good.
I'm looking.
I did like that Orioles draft though. I did like the top there with even Juro, getting Juro where they did. I like him a lot too.
I'm gonna go back one step because I want to talk about the Brewers because they also did a nice job of balancing. But Andrew Fisher, J.D. Thompson in the 2nd round, Jacob Morrison in the 3rd round, Danny Dickinson in the 6th. It felt like a pretty good haul. Even Andrew Healy in the 9th with what the Brewers are doing with arms to grab guys like that is really some pig dime stuff. Anything on the Brewers draft class, Seifert or Kendall?
Go ahead, Seif.
Yeah, as you guys know, I'm a huge fan of J.D. Thompson. Just love the lefty from Vanderbilt, a high ride fastball, but he's also got some secondaries they'll get to do. I think he's a fast mover. I think he's undervalued. I know he went 59th overall, but it's a bulldog mentality out there. So you get a lefty who strikes guys out with good stuff. That's a pretty good combination. And Kendall saw Jacob Morrison twice at the College World Series. I was at home watching TV, but I saw him, in Supers and the World Series. Really big fan of. It's a different release point with a big breaking curveball, and it's, mid 90s, 92, 95 velocity. So big fan of him. But I thought their best pick, and again, I don't know all the details behind the scenes, but to get Daniel Dickinson in the 6th round, absolute steal. The kid nutted up and played through a regional, a super regional, College World Series with a broken hamate. Didn't tell anybody, didn't want to use it as crutch. Obviously, Jay Johnson didn't either. But just really, I thought preseason people were talking about him in the 1st round, 2nd round. I thought that was a little rich, but certainly he's not a 6th rounder. I would have taken him in somewhere around late in day 1, 3rd round. Just like the guy, like him a lot. So I thought that was their best. Again, of the players I've seen that they took, I thought he was a really good, undervalued, their best value pick.
Can I give you one guy that I feel like I'm going to shift to the Blue Jays for one guy here?
Do it.
Jared Spencer. To get him in the 11th round, I get it. There's injury concerns. He had the elbow issue his final year at Indiana State. He had the shoulder surgery at Texas this past year. But I mean, if he's healthy, that's a game changer for Texas in the postseason because he was dominant. I mean, the fastball was consistently 94, 96, up to 97. The slider was a wipeout slider. He could be one of those guys that if Jared Spencer is healthy, we're talking a year from now, and he's in the bullpen for the Blue Jays a year from now in the middle of July.
Yeah,
if he's healthy.
And once again, to back Kendall up, I mean, I saw Jared Spencer at Globe Life too. I think it was the opening weekend. But, like, if you just look at the other guys the Jays took ahead of him, I say he's better, but, like, he's better than all but the 1st rounder as far as, like, where he was going to go in the draft. And I know he broke down and stuff, and I know the injury means a lot. But, like, I would have taken Jared Spencer over, like, the 8 guys above him. So that's a really good pick in the 11th round.
Nicely done.
Injured or not, but that's pretty darn good.
Yeah, we won't offend JoJo Parker by saying we would take him over him as well.
Not above JoJo.
So, and actually the Blue Jays took, as we shift into some recruiting class talk, so I can, hey, Kendall, I'm going to get you ready for next season already. Here's what's coming your way. The Blue Jays did take Blaine Bullard, who's a Texas A&M recruit in the 12th round. So we will see some of that stuff. And if you're listening to this now, article is probably up on D1 Baseball and prepbaseball.com about some of my thoughts about what is headed its way, newcomers to campus. I did not include 11th, 12th rounders. I kind of counted them as going professional for now, right? We'll wait and see what happens. I do think some others after the 12th round will sign, so we'll keep that in mind. But for my list, the biggest winner, number 1, Mississippi State. And it's hard not to be a huge winner when you have a 6'4" lefty up to 103 with a chance for 2+ pitches who somehow makes it to campus. Then you add in Jacob Parker, who is JoJo's brother, top 3 round talent, who went in the 19th round. So he's likely headed to Starkville as well. And then they brought in some really good other arms. You talk about Maddox Miller, lefty from the state of Mississippi, along with Parker Rhodes, who's an electric arm from the state of Indiana. Mississippi State, even though the coaching staff changed, they did lose Trent Grindlinger, who will wind up at Tennessee, another key winner, but huge for the Bulldogs. TCU is my number 2 class, LSU 3, Tennessee 4, Texas at 5, who also picked up Michael Winner, who was a former Dartmouth recruit. They add him as he was a potential top 2 rounder this year. Oregon State at 6, although I will say there's a caveat there. Mason Pike was selected. So, like, Oregon State as a winner really hangs in the balance of what happens with Mason Pike. But I want to talk to you a little bit about the transfer portal and then how teams are viewing success in this. And from our standpoint, to me, like I had LSU, they lost a ton of guys, right? So if you got to see Miguel Simi, he was up to 101. They lost all sorts of first rounders. We talked about Fauski. We talked about Hodge. All these guys come off the board, and we're still waiting to see. River Hamilton went in the 12th round. He could be another big arm. But the fact that Marcos Paz is headed to campus is amazing. Like Jay Johnson walks away, I'm thinking, we won this draft. We got this guy. Omar Cerna said he's going to campus, Reagan Ricken. But Marcos Paz is the most college-ready arm in this class. He is the most impactful SEC guy who can step in potentially on the weekend immediately and do it. Jack Bauer's going to take a little bit of seasoning. Cam Appenzeller is going to Tennessee. We think has a chance to be a first round. He's going to take some seasoning. Marcos Paz, he can get ready to go. He's going to push Case and Evans right from the start. So what do you think about the transfer portal and how, hey, we don't need so much quantity as much as we need quality at the top?
Yeah, I was going to actually kind of throw it back to you real quick, just because, you've seen Bauer so many times and there's a lot of buzz on him just because of his velocity and things like that. But like, what is your, for college fans, like, what is your freshman comp on him? Like, what do you think he can be as a freshman?
Shoot, as a freshman, I think one of the keys for Bauer coming in is like he's going to need innings. Like if you can push him to, hey, he's going to start some midweeks, because it's not fair. Any of these arms going into school, like to have the hype that is that high, it's very rare you get somebody who comes in like Jack Leiter who just is ready to go. Some Kumar Rocker, right? For the Kumar Rockers of the world, even Kumar, he scuffled a little bit early on his freshman year, but they were able to develop him into what happens in 2019 for them. And he blows up, he throws a no-hitter, he does his whole deal. I don't know if there's ever been an arm that's made it to campus like Jack Bauer's, though. With it would have been like Thomas White spurning the Marlins and getting to campus. It just doesn't happen.
I still remember talking to Garrett Cole when he decided to go to UCLA. Like his camp was like, this is way back in the day, obviously, but like his camp was in like constant contact with me about him going to UCLA. And I kind of thought, like, for the entire time, like, yeah, there's no way he's going to UCLA. And he ends up going there and being a part of the best 1-2 punch potentially in college baseball history. But, earlier you asked about the transfer portal and kind of how coaches are navigating that. But what's really interesting is to see like who's prepared. And I'm going to kind of fluff Jay Johnson a little bit here, because they obviously got hit, pretty hard in the draft from a high school standpoint. But what have they done in the 24 hours since the draft is over? They add Zach York, who, you got to love Zach York, right? I mean, the only thing that concerns me a little bit about Zach York is his access to Cajun food a little bit. But it's big-time power, and they get Chris Stanfield back. I get why scouts don't love Chris Stanfield, but let's not forget Chris Stanfield was the leading SEC hitter for the LSU Tigers for much of the conference season. So, it's interesting to see, even when you kind of get punched in the mouth a little bit, who's ready. And LSU was ready. Texas was ready. They go pick Ashton Larson up today. They're probably going to lose Caleb Freeman. So all these teams, with the portal closed, they're having to scramble. They're having to make moves.
It will be interesting moving forward with that. But I do have TCU to kind of be a little bit different on that side of things. TCU had 2 freshman All-Americans, right? Noah Franco gets to campus that you guys got to see, and then the Stroh show, which was one of my favorite guys, Stroh Snyder, 2 electric guys in the sophomore class. TCU is going to bring in Uli Fernsler, a lefty from Michigan, who some buzz top 40 pick, never made kind of the velo jump. That's going to happen under Coach Sarloos. Like, no worry about that. Guy can pitch, low slot lefty. It is going to be there. Brady Dallimore, who, Seif, when we're talking about catchers, right? The prep catchers who we kind of discard, okay, whatever. They all of a sudden 3 years later become the college catchers that everybody wants. Brady Dallimore is that guy. Like, he kind of shifts into that spot as a potential big-time dude. He had a great season out in Las Vegas. So he's going to get to campus for TCU. And then Lucas Franco from the Houston area down by you, Kendall, like, there was no reason that guy got to campus. He can be a superstar. If things click for him, he has a ceiling that very few in this class have. So get those TCU futures ready the next couple of years. Tennessee, Texas, Arkansas, even to an extent, their class was probably a little lighter, but they get 2 big-time shortstops, Landon Schaefer, in-state kid, Carson Brumbaugh, a former prep baseball All-American. Those are guys that are headed there. Alabama, we'll see what happens with Caleb Barnett, but he's a guy that we kind of had penciled as this is a future pick. 3 years from now, we could be looking at an elite SEC talent. And then Louisville, even though we talked about Kusau going, Brandon Shannon, and then Cade Elam, you kind of get those 2 guys at the top. So I'm already excited for next season, Kendall. I've closed the book on the draft. I'm moving on to 26. Let's kind of sift things around. Seif's getting ready for all his coverage the rest of the summer. I know he's going to be at the Midwest Pro Case. Anything else you got coming this summer, Kendall, over at D1?
Yeah, obviously we'll kind of wrap up the transfer portals, kids, who has the best class, who, will have the best freshman classes later in the fall. But the other thing that I'm just super excited about is just see what Seif cooks up for the first 2026 list, particularly on the college side. The college 26 class looks awesome at the top. Obviously, we're all going to talk about Rod Chalowski, but boy, I thought, guys like Zion Rose were awesome in Omaha. I mean, there's a lot of depth in that 1 through like 30 to 40 in the college class for next year. It's a good looking group.
Yeah, Kendall just hit that on the head. I mean, like our number 1 going into the year was Drew Burrus, right? Justin LeBron was 2, but I think Roch just passed them both, although Roch really struggled with the USA CNT. LeBron wasn't part of that. Burrus was just okay with them. But I think those 3 are kind of your top 3 at this point. But then you got like AJ Gracia, Chris Rembert, sophomore eligible at Auburn, just was outstanding spring, outstanding with the CNT. Like Kendall mentioned, Zion Rose. I don't know if you take a left fielder, super tall, but if Zion can play center, which he won't because Lucas Moore is in center. And I actually think Lucas Moore, Louisville center fielder, is every bit as good, if not better, than Enrique Bradfield was for Vanderbilt. But Moore can hit. In our we were a little concerned about EBJ hitting, and it's played out that way in pro ball. But for me, Moore is a better prospect than EBJ. He probably won't get selected as high because EBJ was famous, but Moore is a dude too. You got Eric Becker, Chris Hokopian, Strauss Snyder you mentioned earlier. I really love Jaron Advincula from he was at Cal, now he's at Georgia Tech. He's tearing up the Cape Cod League again for the second time. I mean, I could just go on and on.
Can Cam Flukie get some respect on his name? We're talking about a guy who was like 90. He was 96, 98 in the was it the 7th or 8th inning against LSU in Omaha?
Yeah, you didn't let me get the pictures out. I was just so enamored.
I was just going to cut you off.
Hey, Flukie was going to be the first picture off my mouth. Go ahead.
Hey, we got a whole other show we're going to do on the 2026 class. And
you got me going. You got me sweating here.
If you get me going on Cam Flukie, Jersey guy, hallway heat guy.
Oh, that's right.
EPC guy. We will be here all day.
Shooter's going to have a special Cam Flukie podcast.
We're going to be on for a full 2026 breakdown, what to expect. Yep. Yes, there will be lots of Rock Chalowski talk. I don't know if Zion Rose has made out yet this summer, so maybe by that point he will have made an out of this summer. But Kendall, I really want to thank you for coming on the show today.
Thanks for having me.
It was a fun 2025 year. The draft is nearly officially closed. Good luck to all you recruiting coordinators. Hopefully your recruits get to campus. But until next time, this has been an episode of The War Room, and we will see each and every one of you at the ballpark.